how do you navigate teaching people, here's all the nuts and bolts, with what I believe is a moral responsibility too? Dude, if you're going to get in front of a camera, you have to know what you're talking about because you can hurt people in the way that the algorithm will just spin this stuff up and spit it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many things that come to mind. I think the first is that the internet, of course, I believe is really amoral. Money is amoral. It's how you use it, but they're amplifiers. You know, does money change people? No, it just amplifies who you already are. And then what does the internet do? Does it actually, you know, is it made a new problem? I think it's probably the same problem, but it's amplified. There's always been charlatans.
Always.
There's always
on the street corner, right?
Yeah. There's always been people who shouldn't have been writing books that are, or that had one barely successful business that mostly failed, or top line looked good, but bottom line was horrible. And they still called themselves a business expert. So that's just going to get amplified by the internet. I think a couple of ways to do this with integrity is to think about sequencing and to stay in your lane. Of course, the joke online is 20-year-old life coach.
Right. I was just in Los Angeles, and the number of people who were working at like Smoothie King last week who are now doing ayahuasca trips as a shaman. You're like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? It's bananas.
You leveled up your shaman game quick.
Real quick, yeah. Or you like go to a essential oil seminar, and you're like, oh, I know how to solve cancer. And you're like, bro, dial it back.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that maps to human nature. But the thing is, yes, 20-year-old life coaches, I think should not be happening, but it doesn't mean the 20-year-old can't create content.
Okay, tell me about that, because there's a tension there for me.
Well, so like one of the things we help people do is there's like a big opportunity right now you can make YouTube videos. You can even just go to your like pantry or your garage, use your smartphone, film yourself reviewing the socket set that you've been using for the past couple weeks,
right,
that you just bought off Amazon. Upload that to Amazon directly. If a percentage of that video is watched, you actually get a commission if you're the last watched video on that purchase of that product. I've got multiple friends and people in our community earning thousands of dollars a month, uploading videos directly to Amazon about stuff around their house that they're actually using.
Fantastic.
That's not a problem for me.
Right.
If you bought it, you used it, you go, yeah, I bought this other one.
Here's my opinion on it.
Here's my opinion. It worked. Like, this is what it looks like. This is how it fits with this style of hips, this shape of body. This is
so strange. I get it. It's like, because I would have asked the person like at the gym or the church, like, hey, I heard you got this vacuum. Do you like it? And like, oh, I love it.
100%. But if
now
you
they get a check for it.
If you're actually on Amazon, there's the videos right there. You can just scroll through them. You like watch one. You're like, oh yeah, she has a body that's shaped like mine. So stay in your lane. Like, there's so much opportunity for people, but you don't have to be like a life coach or a marriage expert, and you have to step in all these expertise. So
is there an incentive to sensationalize? Because one thing we struggle with here is the number of calls. You know, we can sit down with the YouTube team here, and they're like, guys, give us more of, found out my dad was a priest, like with 23andMe, or give me the one, like my granddaughter thinks she's a fox or whatever. Like, give me some more of those.
Yeah.
And it's real easy to get real Jerry Springer real fast because it drives this. And it's actually a discipline here to say, no, like, here's who's listening to the show. We're going to keep
You're hitting the word. That's having clarity of
I guess
your
it's
brand,
integrity. It's just
your
character.
integrity long term, and I don't think being overly critical of yourself if you drift into the more clickbait or you lean heavy.
Sure.
It's course correct. Right. So if you've got your values written out, you kind of know, then you're like, oh, we're drifting a little bit from purpose. Let's come back. I think the other big opportunity for people right now is there's this opportunity to be like a knowledge broker, a reporter, and then the expert. And so
break those down.
If you're wanting to help and build marriages and write a book someday, then first become a protege. You could become a knowledge broker. You could start a podcast where you're like, listen, all we know is our marriage is jacked up. So we're going to have guests on that can help us.
There you go.
And that's, you're a broker of other people's knowledge.
Okay.
And this idea, I'm going to write my own book or create my own marriage curriculum. Knowledge broker can share other people's curriculum.
Okay.
I mean, people share financial peace.
Sure.
They could become a coach. You didn't really crack this, but you can get to this level where you're an extension. You're not that like all-time OG expert, Ramsey, but you could be at that knowledge broker. Reporter kind of ties into that as well. If you think about this, one of the most famous personal development books of all time, Think and Grow Rich, was not from an individual who built the big companies. He interviewed Andrew Carnegie, and there's actually even some speculation of whether that's true or not. But nevertheless, the idea of packaging those that are proven experts with proven track records. What's cool about that is when you take the knowledge broker path and the reporter path, and then all of the life lessons that come around that can then help you even get to the true expertise with actual depth in the proper order. But in the content creation arena, I think that's an integrous way to get there. Gotcha. You're getting there in a way where you're learning, you're getting to be a student, and you're just not getting ahead of yourself where you're saying, come alongside me, as opposed to positioning yourself as this experienced expert. And that would be a lack of integrity if that's not true.
So I like that. So that means you blow your marriage up, y'all repair it, and you keep pretty close tabs on how that repair process went. And I'm an old qualitative researcher, so that story is important. Tell that story.
Yeah.
And tell that story as our story. So one of the things as a qualitative researcher, I always had to say, this is not generalizable. This is those people right there. This is this story. This is not everybody. And so to say, like, here's how me and my wife healed this marriage. Not we're the Gottmans, right? We've sat with 50,000 couples and we've put heart monitors on them. We've studied them. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think also that
there's a humility in that, though.
I think that there is a humility in that. And I think that we're seeing an unfortunate thing happening. We're seeing that probably certain personality types that are wired to want the spotlight and have the social media influence are chasing that and fixated on the views and on that feedback loop. Meanwhile, one of my messages would be there are so many millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers who need to be on social media because this wisdom needs to be shared. There's a channel called Dad, How Do I?
I love that, yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't have the dad showing them how to fix the stuff around the house. So you're right. It would be awesome if you have a relationship with your neighbors, and that is its own issue and challenge. But also think about the power and the impact that you actually are having that connection at some level, but he's solving problems. He's helping you, but that's some real wisdom. He's fixed stuff around the house. So I would say to Gen Xers and baby boomers, what's wild is there's something like 8 out of 10 baby boomers in the US are watching YouTube. And there's a massive move of content creators, Gen X, baby boomers. They have so much wisdom. Sometimes there's a tech gap. Like, it's sort of like, are we going to curse the darkness? We need to light a lamp.
Yeah.
We need to light a match. So, and part of one of the things from my perspective that I feel blessed with is you and I are digital immigrants. And there's this whole generation that's digital natives. We have a blessing to be digital immigrants. I grew up on 6 acres, climbing trees, playing outside, pre-internet. I remember when I got the AOL CD disc.
Yeah.
Ooh, 2 hours free. Ooh, another 8 hours came. Start another email, free internet.
It's back when we had phone cards to call long distance. And
And you had the switch over. It would go through, pause the internet, so a call would come through on your one line. If you had 2 lines, you're like, oh, we're balling. Like, we have an internet line, 56.6.
We didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Sean.
2 phone lines. And so if you think about, I think it's biblical. I think about these heroes of mine like King David, who just had so much time fighting lions and tigers and bears that prepared him for Goliath. Samuel comes and anoints him, so he also gets this vision of, oh wow, like I may be called to prominence and influence. Clearly, like that has been affirmed, but then like over a decade passes before he even reaches being king. We're in such a rush in today's world where on the one hand, I'm like, this social media opportunity for good, for supporting your family, creating side income, making a difference in people's lives. But also, we don't have to be in that much of a rush. And this is a tension to be managed. If you, I think, have humility and are obsessed with real depth and real Cal Newport, be so good you can't be ignored.
Right.
Like real depth, like really putting in 10,000 hours, like really putting in the expertise and becoming a true subject matter expert is at some level it's going to take time and volume.
Yeah.
And I think the tension is the whole thing on the 10,000 hour rule was that's got to be 5 to 10 years. But we are also living, Malcolm Gladwell just updated that. He's like, it's actually a little bit different now because we do have more access to information. We can get good information faster. We can have deliberate practice in a more concentrated way right now. The bright spots of the internet and of YouTube is that we could accelerate our learning. We're going to need experience, but maybe, I know it's maybe leaders. The old mentality, maybe in a toxic church culture, business culture, is like, we'll hold you down. And we have this maybe idea where stay humble, serve for 30 years before you'll be promoted or whatever. Okay, don't promote somebody too soon, but it also could be too long. Crazy tension to be managed.
Yeah.
How long until someone's ready? It's a good question. What are the signs? Seeing their character, seeing their discipline, seeing their humility. Think about yourself, And so there certainly is a too fast, but there also could maybe be a too slow. And I think we wrestle with that. And we usually drift to extremes like, oh man, YouTube or social media, I don't know if I want to get into that. What could happen? But then there's all these people with wisdom that should be sharing, that do have expertise, that are stuck in fear or stuck behind a learning curve they're not willing to get over. Too many people are writing marriage books when there's people who should be right now who've maybe buried their talent. They need to dig that thing up because that thing needs to be multiplied.
And that is probably the ultimate tension for me. You mentioned, what is it? How to be a dad?
Dad, how do I?
Dad, how do I? A great channel. And that guy's got the videos on how to clean the back of your fridge and how to tie a tie and all those. And I remember seeing that the first time, and I was like, what an amazing gift to humanity, right? And I guess the tension is, and I'll leave us with this. I remember my dad was a SWAT hostage negotiator growing up, and he got called away to a big SWAT thing. And it was the night of like a Valentine's dance, and I had to wear a tie. I didn't know how to tie it. And I had to run down the street and get my neighbor named Mike Stewart, who was my buddy's dad, to tie this tie. And he came out smiling and laughing, and he's like, you don't know how to tie a tie? Oh my gosh. And he tied it for me, and he put it on me, and he's like, you look good. Like, I remember that. And then just a few years ago, when I launched my first book, Mike and Kathy showed up in Dallas, Texas to the book thing. And it was this long arc of, I knew when my dad was out of town, if I was going to get in trouble, Mike was watching. You know what I mean? And so it's that both and that I guess maybe I'm old now and nostalgic for, like, man, you got to know your neighbors for just that moment. And also people don't. And so what do you do in that gap?
Yeah.
You get online and teach people, hey, there's going to be some 7th grader whose dad just got called to work and you know how to tie a tie. Or there's going to be that dad who just, 60% of homes don't have two parents.
Fatherlessness is just all time.
So I'm going to step in that gap. Yeah. And maybe as content creators, we have to admit, okay, it's not the same. It's not. But nothing is better than something.
Yeah.
Or something's better than
nothing.
Yeah. And so we're going to put that out there and hope that we can be a light there. Mm-hmm. It's a tension. I wrestle with it hard, man.
I feel it. I think if we stopped wrestling with it, we're in trouble.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way to say it.
Tensions to be managed, just what leaders would do. I like that. Not problems to be solved, tensions to be managed.
Yeah.